Hey everyone, hope you guys are doing well. Just quickly checking if the live stream is all good. I think it's fine. Just feel free to confirm in chat if the audio is okay, because I haven't streamed last week. As it turns out, of course, this is Game Week 23, so welcome everyone to the stream for the deadline. We got the Liverpool double Game Week news, which is what I was sort of talking about, where I was going to hold my Liverpool players probably to see if the news would actually culminate, because we had a small 15% chance actually after yesterday that maybe the double game week would be confirmed today. Obviously, it has been, but there was even a chance that the double game week could have been confirmed, let's say, after the deadline at 11 a.m. So, kind of insane that it's actually been done at 9 a.m. And my team still looks good going forwards, obviously, because I still have Darwin and Trent. So, that's a nice little thing that I've benefited from. However, this week is terrible for me. I have to be honest. So with you guys having Solanke, Newcastle players, so on and so forth, it's not looking very good for me in comparison. So I'm pretty jealous of a lot of teams out there right now. Captaincy wise, I've decided to go with Palmer. I have brought in Haaland, but it was really between Watkins, Palmer, and Haaland. And I can't really guarantee fully that Haaland's going to start. So because of that, I just think it makes more sense to put the captaincy on someone that I know is probably guaranteed 85 to 90 minutes. And that's it. Jimmy says he believes in my Yim. No idea what that means, but thank you. I assume that means team, and I appreciate that. Dawn says bench one out of Jota, Saka, Foden, Palmer, Solanke, Alvarez, Watkins. I'd probably bench Foden, I think. Foden or Alvarez. Choose one of the two of them. It really just depends on who you actually think is going to start for this Man City team. Do I choose Gordon or Solanke as captain? I think both are good. I'd probably go Solanke just because guarantees of him being a penalty taker. Now, Gordon could very well take penalties, but I just think it makes more sense to go with Solanke. Someone asks a similar question about Watkins, Solanke, Palmer, Alvarez. I wouldn't captain Alvarez this week. I think it's between the three first options that you mentioned. So for me, it's between Watkins or Solanke or Palmer. And I actually think they're super close with each other. So I don't really mind going Solanke. If I own Solanke this week, I would 100% be captaining Solanke. I'm pretty confident about that. JP says, hi mate, start 2 out of Alvarez, Saka, Jota. I'd probably go Saka. I might go Saka, Alvarez, but it depends on whether you want to bench Jota or not. Who should I bench out of Watkins, Solanke, and Haaland? I don't think you should be benching any of them. Personally, I think there's better midfielders to bench. In fact, I guarantee you have midfielders in your team that you can bench. Wolverine says, should I captain Solanke? For me, it's between Solanke and Palmer in that situation, just because with Haaland, right? I've brought him in, but it doesn't mean that I know that he's going to start. So I think Haaland's going to start, but I can't guarantee it. And because I can't guarantee it, there's no reason for me to go with a captaincy that I can't fully guarantee. I don't even know, for example, if Alvarez was going to start. I just knew long term that I was always going to go Alvarez to Haaland eventually. So that's sort of the position that I'm in. Bench one out of Trent, Konsa, Gabriel. I'd probably bench Gabriel. I think you're sort of looking at Liverpool and Arsenal being potentially sort of both teams to score games. So back maybe the best attacking player between Trent and Gabriel. Konsa's got better sort of avenues to points just through clean sheets. Extremely high odds for Aston Villa this week. Meme says, will Fran kiss me? Unfortunately not. Jaden says, hi Fran, looking to get in Gordon or KDB in this week. Not sure who to take out, however. I'd probably go Gordon this week, but yeah, I mean, given that the midfield you have actually includes Jota, and this is actually a bad fixture for Jota, I wouldn't bring in either for yourself, you know? Brentford is still a pretty tough game. I don't think I would go out of Foden, so personally, I would actually just keep it as it is, because Foden, of course, is going to be a double game week or soon, and Jota is as well, so I wouldn't take them out. And then I wouldn't really see this as an opportunity to go out of Saka for whatever reason. You know, Saka's a perfectly good pick. I don't see it as something that you have to do in terms of, you know, selling Saka for this week. The chat is absolutely buzzing today, so thank you guys so much. I'm going to quickly go through some of the member chat questions. BL says he's got a captaincy headache. I think that is a headache. I'd probably remove Haaland from it just because, as I said, I wouldn't be sure about his minutes. Everyone else, I think, within your captaincy headache is perfectly good to go. People asking Bowen or Foden to start. I'd probably actually still go Bowen, ultimately, because I can't guarantee Foden's minutes either. I think I have a very weak team this week, right? I can't play Eze because I think he's injured. Or at least there's a scan, which means that, you know, he could still have his minutes managed, etc., etc. So it's a tough situation. I think I'd rather bench Foden because I know Bowen's got guarantees for me. Will I get Salah back for double game week 25? No. So if you look at my team now, And let me just quickly show you my team. I've only got 1.6 million in the bank. And the only thing I can really do with 1.6 million in the bank is probably go out of Richarlison. Does it make sense to go out of Richarlison on Gameweek 25? Absolutely not, just because he actually has a really good fixture. Maybe I actually have to go out of Saka, but he also has a good fixture. I think the most logical thing that I will do is potentially something like, Virgil in, if I can. And hopefully I have to make a move before that as well. But we'll see. Or alternatively, I think I could always go Porro out, Virgil in. That's another sort of move that I could do. But I'll need to see, what's up. I mean, I guess I could also go Allison. Doesn't sound too crazy. But it's not something that I want to do. Is it because he's Becker? Yeah, of course. Sorry, he's Becker in game. But, yeah. Those are the sort of moves that I can make. I don't see I could go out of Richarlison, though, to be honest. I really could. Especially if I think for whatever reason his minutes might be hampered. But I think I'm very likely going to sort of be keeping the team as it is. Eze, of course, fills in a perfect hole for Gaming 26. So I can't really sell him. Because obviously if I go triple Liverpool, I can't really be selling Eze. Because I need to have still a strong team for Gaming 26. So a lot of things will have to be decided upon. Maybe as well on Gaming 26, I could also just simply go Darwin out. Darwin out to Solanke would make a lot of sense on Gaming 26 for my team. But yeah, I don't think I'm going Salah. And I think I can confirm that now. All right, back to chat questions. Let's see. Captain Palmer Gordon. I'd actually probably go Palmer myself, but you can always go Gordon. I mean, Gordon could be playing center forward, could be on penalties, but I don't have the guarantees that he's on penalties. So I do like someone like Palmer who's guaranteed on penalties if I think the options are close. Did I already bring in Haaland and captain? No, I'm not captaining Haaland, obviously, as you can see. I'm rocking with Palmer for now. Congrats on 2.5k. Thank you so much. Gusto or Porro to start? I'd actually start Gusto. I mean, Wolves at home is a much easier fixture than Everton away. Thoughts on Isaac? I mean, obviously, I know that I think he's still a couple of weeks away, isn't he? So, I mean, it doesn't seem like he's going to be available unless I'm wrong. Dimitri, thank you so much for the donation and the super chat, really. Hi, Fran. Starting Gabriel, Estu, Senesi, KDB, Palmer, Garnacho, Saka, Willian, Alvarez, Watkins, bench, Darwin, White, Lascelles. Okay, you got one free transfer in the bank. 12 million in the bank. You can't really sell Darwin. I guess if you want to keep Alvarez this week, you could. But we need to think about also, you're going to start, you sort of need to start building a Man City team. I think you can start chasing, obviously, rank, but I would still go Alvarez to Haaland this week. Start using some of that money back within your team. And I can't see any defender this week that's actually good. For example, Liverpool will double game week on 25, but you can't actually guarantee for sure that Trent is going to be a good pick on this week, or even that he's going to play both fixtures in the double. So I wouldn't recommend Trent this week because Arsenal's such a bad game. I think your defense this week actually looks pretty good. Obviously, Gabriel isn't ideal, but you should still play him. As far as the midfield, I think that's extremely strong. It really depends. Maybe you could upgrade Willian as well. If you don't want to go Haaland, I think you could just upgrade Willian. I think Gordon's interesting. Personally, I think he's the best midfielder that you could possibly bring in, for this week. And captaining Gordon, I think if you get a captaincy swing right this week, right, and you've got options within your team, personally, I think between Palmer, Gordon, Watkins, if you get the captaincy right between the three of those players, you're going to be in a good position. So that's what I would suggest. Either Haaland or go for a Willian upgrade. Start Konsa or Trent. I'd start Konsa 100%. If I had Konsa, I would have started him. Notorious Russell, thank you so much. Nice to see you around as well on the stream. Some few questions. Gordon / Palmer / Watkins as captain. Personally, I would go with Palmer as a captaincy. I mean, I've gone for Palmer captaincy, of course, myself, just because I like the penalty taker in this situation. I think all three of them have a good fixture. Potentially, Gordon actually has the best fixture, right? He's at home. He's versus Luton, who are still a probably worse defense than Wolves. And ultimately, it just depends on what you prefer. I don't think any of them are bad options this week. I would love to have Gordon in this team, but as I was trying to explain, if I bring in more Newcastle players into my team and I own Liverpool players, my team on Game Week 26 is going to be super weak. So that's why I've sort of been avoiding Newcastle players for my team, because I'm already very heavily invested into Chelsea players, Tottenham players, and Liverpool players at the same time. Can you captain KDB? I think that's perfectly fine, but would I recommend it? Probably not. It's up to you, though. I mean, if you think KDB will start and you think he's going to get really good minutes again, that's fair. But I think he's also started a lot of games back to back. So that makes things very, very different for you. Dimitri as well, thank you for sort of, I think you sent a follow-up question. What about Trippier? No Salah in Game Week 25, I think, is perfectly fine, because, I mean, Salah, we have to sort of monitor, first of all, Salah's comeback, right? Because if Salah, let's say, comes back ahead of schedule, then maybe he can play both the games in double Game Week 25. But based on his injury timeline, we know that Salah will actually take some time to come back, and he might not actually play both fixtures in double Game Week 25. So I don't think you necessarily need to start planning for Salah, right? And also keep in mind, if you bring in, let's say, Erling now, I mean, he's going to play double Game Week 25. You don't necessarily have the same guarantees with Salah. But I think Salah, of course, seems like, and probably is, the best triple captain if you can guarantee his fitness. The issue, I suppose, now is that we can't. Alternatively, of course, you could just roll within your team. If you're trying to plan for Salah and you want to get him in, then you could roll. But I think you should start also using the money you have in the bank. And I think simply going from Willian to Gordon, if you want to delay the Haaland move and maybe think about going for Salah over Haaland, then just go for Gordon over Willian, who I think is a huge upgrade anyways. Let's see. I think there's another super chat as well. True Fandela, thank you so much as well. Bench one, Foden or Bowen. I sort of explained this on Twitter to someone else who asked the same question, and I still think I would play Bowen, because with Foden, yes, of course, he's played a lot of games recently, and yes, I think he's definitely a part of Man City's best starting 11. But first of all, both the teams technically have poor games on paper, and I think this could be a week where Foden could be on the bench. So when I look at, let's say, Bowen and Foden, I know Bowen's guaranteed 90 minutes. I don't know whether Foden's even going to start necessarily, or whether he's going to play beyond 75 minutes. So I'd probably actually pick Bowen in that situation. Dan Watson, thank you so much for your super chat as well. You need help. Bench one, De Bruyne, Saka. I would actually bench Foden personally. I still think De Bruyne's going to start. And I think Saka, you have guarantees once again, similar to sort of when I compared to Bowen, right? You have guarantees that Saka's going to play 90. You have guarantees that Saka's, 70% of a guarantee that he's probably on penalties. So that's a huge little plus there. Laravs, thank you as well for your super chat. Really appreciate you. Nice to see you as well on the stream. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Esteban, Porro, Gabriel Saka, Palmer, Gordon Richarlison, Bowen, Watkins, Solanke, Alvarez. You got 2 free transfers and 8.6 in the bank. Which transfers would you suggest? Haaland, Trippier. So what I would answer to you first is you actually have a lot of Spurs players as well, and Chelsea players too. Very similar to me. You even have a Newcastle player in Gordon. So what I would say is that because that's going to make your team a little bit worse for Game Week 26, I don't really want you to overinvest into Newcastle, because, as I said, your team on paper on Game Week 26 could be very weak. So I do think this is the week to simply just go Alvarez to Haaland. You're also in a luxury position because you simply have the chance to just go Alvarez to Haaland and then actually still have 2 free transfers next week. I wouldn't spend both 2 free transfers. I think I would roll for sure. I would just play Trent. I would just play Porro and Estupiñán. That's probably going to be your back line. You just play the midfield 5 or you rather play the 3-4-3 that you kind of have suggested. And I'd probably bench Bowen within this situation, just because your team's extremely strong. And I think Richarlison, if I had to compare it to Bowen, I'd still go Richarlison over Bowen. So that's pretty much what I would suggest. And you have an easy chance here to just play Haaland. Janks as well. Captaincy choice between KDB and Palmer. Look, I would go with Palmer personally. Because I think when we look at, let's say, Palmer, I've got guarantees that he's on penalties. I've got guarantees that he's probably going to play 85 to 90 minutes of football. With KDB, it's a bit different. I mean, there could be a sort of 10%, 15% chance KDB's benched. I don't think that's going to happen. I think KDB will start. But you also can't guarantee that he's going to play 70, 75 minutes. It's also an away fixture compared to what Palmer has in terms of a Wolves at home fixture, which is very, very nice. Start Neto or Saka. I'd probably start Saka. I mean, Saka's at home, Neto's away. So yeah, I find it tougher to sort of back the idea that I would go for Neto over Saka this week. And also penalties is a huge sort of implicator as well. John Wick says, hi Fran, thoughts on Saliba to a 4.5 defender and Alvarez to Haaland? I don't think you necessarily need to go Alvarez to Haaland this week. That's the only thing I would say, because I can't really recommend a 4.5 defender this week that is amazing for all intents and purposes. You're saying 4.5, which is a very specific price point, right? I don't even think Konsa, for example, is 4.5. Like, I think Konsa is a very good transfer. You could also go for a Newcastle defender, right? A 4.5 or 4.4 Newcastle defender in terms of Dan Burn or Botman. That could work as well. But I don't think this is the week necessarily where you have to go Alvarez to Haaland. I've only gone for Alvarez to Haaland because I still have a lot of luxury after making that transfer, right? I have 1.6 million in the bank, and that still allows me to actually make transfers after this. That would be sort of, an upgrade to Eze if I actually want to go for someone a little bit more expensive. Upgrades to maybe one of my defenders who might blank in Gameweek 26, so on and so forth. Gautam says, sideways transfer from Foden to KDB worth it for second transfer this week, or play Bowen over Foden role? I would just play Bowen over Foden and hope for the best, because I really don't think KDB. I mean, this is an on paper tough fixture for Man City, right? Obviously, yes, they're the strongest team in the league potentially. You might actually think that it's Liverpool. I think probably it is Liverpool. But of course, a lot of people are going to be looking at Brentford as sort of like an easy team to sort of pick on. Still, though, I think when you talk about fixtures, it's not one where I necessarily see Foden to KDB being a good move. As it is. So I'd rather sort of save money, make moves that could help you in the future. Foden could still be very good for Gameweek 25. So that's the big thing there. Uday, sorry, I'm not going to have time to check Discord chats. As you can see, obviously the stream's extremely fast. I'm just going to try to respond to as many questions as possible. Best captaincy pick. I've gone for Palmer, but I don't really think there's a clear best captaincy pick. Personally, I think it's between Watkins, Solanke, Palmer, Gordon. These are the 4 picks that I like the most for captaincy this game week. And the only reason why I'm not suggesting Haaland, even though I have Haaland in my team, is because my issue, I guess, with Haaland is I can't guarantee that he starts, right? I don't know whether Haaland's going to start for sure. If I knew Haaland was going to start for sure, I might actually slap the captaincy on him. But because there's a small doubt, I might as well go with the players that I know are going to play 90 minutes for sure, or at least 85. And of course, I've got penalty takers in Palmer. Solanke as well is a penalty taker, so I'd probably go for him over Watkins. Question is, would you bring in Foden? Would you play Foden over Neto? I would actually play Foden over Neto. Yeah, I would play Foden over Neto. I still think Chelsea away is a tough fixture. I know it's easy to look at, when Chelsea play away from home themselves and they play versus stronger teams, I know they look pretty dire, right? Like Newcastle's a good one. Liverpool's another good example. Even United, for example, is another good example of that. Although we can argue whether or not United's a good team. But ultimately, Chelsea at home have been very resilient versus bottom half-ish teams. And I think this is a good chance for that. -4 for Gordon and for Hwang. Yes, of course, South Korea sort of continue to advance. But I actually think that it still makes sense to not take that -4. First of all, a hit's not necessary. Gordon will probably impinge your team a little bit in terms of Gameweek 26. And then the issue, I suppose, is that Hwang can come back and he's going to be a very, very good pick as soon as he comes back. Why Alvarez sell? I didn't really have any moves to make this week, right? One of the moves that I could have made was, let's say, Colwell out to Konsa. But I think the issue with Konsa is that he could blank in Gameweek 29. And I don't have guarantees over exactly who's going to play on Gameweek 29, who's going to play or who's not going to play, right? So because of that, I don't think there's a need to necessarily go Konsa. I know Haaland's going to play, and I'd rather guarantee going for Haaland earlier now that I have some flexibility to sort of play around Haaland. I do think Alvarez can still start with Haaland, by the way. So if you, let's say, are holding on to Alvarez and you're unsure about going for Haaland this week, I think that's perfectly justified. You don't necessarily need to go straight into Haaland this week. I've only done so because I didn't really have anything to do with my team, and I wanted to keep my Liverpool players because of the chance of double Gameweek 25. So now that it's happened, I actually can't really transfer my Liverpool players. I kind of have to keep Trent. I kind of have to keep Darwin, and I also have to look for maybe another potential Liverpool player, or maybe Doughty from Luton. People are asking bench 2, Porro, Trent, Estupiñán, Konsa, Gusto. I would actually bench Trent and Estupiñán. I'd probably play Porro, Konsa, and Gusto, honestly. I think those are the best fixtures. For me, Liverpool has a pretty tough fixture. Probably one of their toughest. And with Estupiñán, that defense is questionable, plus his minutes are questionable. Start any two between Foden, De Bruyne, and Saka. I would start De Bruyne and Saka within a heartbeat. Hey, Fran, I think... Oh, your super chat got missed? Let me quickly scroll up. I'm really sorry about that, Monk. And Laura, thank you once again for the super chat. Um, I'm just gonna quickly check your. Yep, I've got the super chat here. Apologies once again, monks. That's really my bad. Hey Fran, would you bench between Foden, Saka, and João Pedro? So with me with João Pedro, I think because he's an injury doubt, like usually in those situations, I like to see those players as in either they start and actually play, or they're not worth the risk in terms of the injury doubt. So therefore, I would start João Pedro. Between Solanke and Palmer, if I own Solanke, I would definitely be going Solanke as my captaincy option. However, I don't own Solanke, so that's why I've gone for Palmer, because I'm sort of looking at another player who has a good fixture, 90 minutes per game week, and is going to be on penalties. What I would do, though, is I would go Solanke captaincy in your situation, and I would probably bench Foden in that situation as well. Just because, as I said, I think Saka, you can guarantee that he's going to play 90. With João Pedro, I think either he plays maybe 75 minutes or he doesn't, right? And if he plays, of course, you're looking at a penalty taker with a good fixture for Brighton. And if he doesn't, that's totally fine because you just get Foden coming off the bench. And I really think that he would just be an auto sub if João Pedro doesn't feature as a starting player. So that's pretty much how I'd answer those questions. Going back to the live chat, though, and thank you guys so much for tuning into the stream. 500 of you guys almost on the stream, which is, I think, a record for me, definitely. Burner or Botman is the question. John Wick asks, I would go with Botman because I think there's always going to be a small chance that, let's say, Burn could maybe get displaced by Livramento at left back. Whereas with Botman, I think the minutes are even more guaranteed. Is Haaland essential? I don't think so for this week. As I said to some people in the chat, I don't think Haaland is essential at all. Start Olise or Alvarez. I'd probably actually start Alvarez still. I think there's a good chance Alvarez can play. Keep in mind, of course, that Olise, I think he was actually subbed off just for sort of scheduled rest, so he seems good to go, but also it's an away fixture for him too, which is, yeah. Why Palmer captain over Haaland? I can't guarantee that Haaland's going to start. That's my issue. If I knew Haaland was going to start 100%, I would actually captain him. Any news on João Pedro? Is it smart to get him out for Haaland? I mean, the way Roberto De Zerbi sort of explained it, I think João Pedro is unlikely to feature, but he could make it, if let's say he passes some late fitness tests. Another thing to mention as well is that this Brighton team is very weak, right? So I think if De Zerbi sees that he needs to start João Pedro, he will. And that's why I probably wouldn't recommend transferring him out for Haaland this week. This isn't one of Haaland's best fixtures. This is Brentford away from home. So I probably, I brought in Haaland because I didn't have any other moves to make. And I'd rather make the move from Alvarez to Haaland now. But do I really see it as an essential move? No. Is campaigning Olise, you mean captaining Olise, crazy? I don't think captaining Olise is crazy. I don't think it's great because I rather go for a player who, first of all, actually Olise could be on penalties because if Eze is out, Olise is on penalties. So it could actually be quite a good move. Raya or Dubravka? I already have Trippier and Gordon. Gabriel is benched. I would play Dubravka for sure. You say you've already got Trippier and Gordon. Gabriel's benched. Look, I think, yes, of course, people don't like doubling up on a defense, but personally, whenever the fixture is actually really good on paper, I don't really mind doubling up on a defense. In fact, in general, you can see over the course of sort of my last two FPL seasons that I think I owned triple Newcastle defense at one point last season. Like I'm totally comfortable owning multiple players from a certain team within that are all sort of dependent on a certain outcome, right? You want that Newcastle clean sheet. I think that's totally fine. Who do I bench out of Douglas Luiz, Foden, or Saka? I'd probably bench Foden. Should I captain... Oops. Oh, the chat's moving so fast. Start Gusto or Saliba? I would start Gusto. I think general questions a lot of people are asking are, whether they should start a Chelsea player over an Arsenal player in defense. Definitely, I would start a Chelsea defender. If you can guarantee that Chelsea player like Gusto, for example, is going to start, I would actually definitely start Gusto over Saliba or another Arsenal player. In terms of Guehi, though, I would probably actually go... Yeah, I mean, maybe you could go Guehi, because I guess you could actually interpret, like, Brighton without João Pedro is a pretty weak team. Evan Ferguson has sort of fallen off a cliff. So it's not a bad chance to, for example, bet on, let's say, Brighton having a very weak team if João Pedro's actually injured. You still have Salah. Should you keep him? I actually think you should, right? Because we've got double game week 25. Egypt are out of AFCON. I would actually keep Salah at this point in time. I think it's a good move. And you can also just wait. Like, for example, wait until game week 24. See if he's actually going to be available for Burnley, which I think is a bit unlikely. You can check, of course, and see what happens. But I think it's still worth keeping him because he could be an insane triple captaincy option. Hojak Borsman says, captaincy, Solanke versus Holland versus Palmer. I would go Solanke personally. I think he has the least effective ownership in terms of people willing to captain him, and I think he's got the best chance of sort of being a good pick there. Carrie Ann Murphy, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your first super chat on the live stream as well. You've said, you're the best FPL streamer. Solanke, Watkins, Palmer, Gordon, captain. Also, are you Scottish? What is that accent? Fair enough. I'm not Scottish. I'm actually from Hong Kong, so I'm mixed. Of course, my dad is from Spain. I guess I would call this an international school accent. So when you grow up in an international school and you sort of listen to American TV shows or things like that, that's probably where it is. I've also been speaking to an Australian friend of mine recently, so I guess I've picked up on some of his mannerisms like just recently. So there might be some sort of twangs to like how I'm speaking right now, which maybe makes it sound Scottish, but I'm definitely not Scottish. I'm half Spanish, half Hong Konger. In terms of the captaincy, though, for real, I would go with Solanke. The reason why I would do that is because when I talk about the 4 best captaincy options in terms of Solanke, Watkins, Palmer, and Gordon, I think they all have great fixtures. They're all at home except for Watkins. But the big thing is penalties, which I really like. And I like the home fixture as well. So I would have probably backed Solanke or Palmer in that situation. That's why I've gone with Palmer. And you can see I've gone with Palmer over Watkins. But I think it's still very close because ultimately Watkins on paper is facing the weakest team in the league. Gordon himself is also a great pick. But I also don't think Gordon's on penalties. So if I was to, let's say, think about all the picks, I think Solanke has the most intangibles. Like he's got penalties, he's got the home fixture, and his underlying stats are brilliant. And he's sort of got form as well with him in terms of even recent underlying stats, not just underlying stats for the course of the season, but actually if you focus, for example, to the last 8 to 10 game weeks, Solanke has been brilliant, as have Bournemouth in general. I'm just going to quickly drink a little sip of water because I am a bit thirsty. I'm definitely not going to debut my Scottish accent. Sorry about that. Maybe next week I could practice for it. Can I speak Cantonese? I can, yeah. Yeah, so my mother's from Hong Kong, so yeah, of course I can speak Cantonese. I mean, I grew up in Hong Kong, of course, so. Although, of course, as an English speaker, you can actually, for example, survive quite easily in Hong Kong because a lot of people do speak English there, given that we were a former English colony. Is Ange Postecoglou working his magic on Fran? Why Palmer and Nkunku's back? What do you mean by why Palmer, though? I really do not believe that Nkunku's on penalties over Palmer. Palmer has literally scored 6 penalties in a row. I just cannot see a world where he suddenly has penalties over Palmer. And I don't see how Nkunku coming back affects Palmer's minutes, really. They sort of play different roles within the team. Maybe I'm wrong, and Palmer actually plays less minutes, but I really don't see that sort of being an issue. So yeah, please tell whom to bench. Gabriel, Zinchenko, Trent, and Konsa. I'd probably bench Zinchenko. Please, Fran, Captain Palmer, Holland, De Bruyne, Trippier. I'd probably go Palmer. I think Trippier is actually the most interesting differential that you've suggested. So I hope that answers your question. Vix from 2K says, too late to get Richarlison. Not necessarily, but do remember that if you bring in someone like Richarlison, the issue is that he's going to blank in Gameweek 26, right? And if you look at, for example, Liverpool versus Luton, and that double Gameweek 25, if you, let's say, brought in Jota this week, even though I wouldn't recommend it because it's versus Arsenal, ultimately you still know that double Gameweek 25 is going to happen. I'm still waiting for your promised Cockney accent. Yeah, I'm such a liar in terms of accents. I really don't have any accents to debut. Mr. Super Chat. All right, apologies about that. Robsy says, any pro tips for rank gain? Currently 800,000. Personally, what I would say in terms of rank gain is try to stop thinking about who owns who around me. So effective ownership, in my opinion, doesn't really matter unless you're thinking about a situation where you generally, let's say, have 2 players in your team and you're trying to think about what is going on. Let's say I've got Solanke and Watkins, and I think that they're both fantastic captaincy options. I would usually tend to go Solanke based on effective ownership because I actually want to get a bit more of a differential versus the rest of the field. But if, let's say, I think Solanke is actually just flat out worse than Watkins, then I would never captain Solanke over Watkins, even though it would be a differential sort of move to do so, right? For me, it always has to be in true 50-50 situations. I then go with a differential pick. So that's the first sort of point of feedback. Because in my opinion, it's less about going for differentials to climb up in rank, but it's more about consistently having good players within your team that can sort of shoot you up in terms of ranking as a cumulative. So, for example, with my team, what you can see is that I have basically 15 playing players, right? There's not a single player here who doesn't actually start for their team. For example, some people still have Lascelles, some people still have Simicast in their team, some people have Taylor, some people have Kabore, which you don't really want to own ever, right? So in those situations, I think it is really helpful having a lot of bench depth. That's something that I can recommend, because also you can see, for example, in a week like this, imagine if Colwell wasn't injured for me. I could have actually just benched Trent and I would be happy about it, because I don't really want to have Trent starting versus Arsenal. Unfortunately, of course, I've been unfortunate because Colwell's injured, but I would love to have Colwell versus Wolves at home. So I think the opportunity to sort of rotate is something that's really good. And some people sort of think about, when they create a team, what I would call as sort of like a topside heavy draft, where you have, let's say, 12 players and then 2 bench fodder players or 3 bench fodder players. I personally don't think that makes too much sense, because you can rotate. That's the whole point of this game. And you can benefit from that, as a result. And then going back to the point in terms of picking players who do points, I think right now, because we're in the single game week to sort of double game week point of the season, what we need to look at in terms, and the blank game weeks rather, not singles, is that you need to sort of plan ahead. So for example, when Ben Crellin has been sort of shooting out fixture probabilities of, let's say, 95% that a Liverpool double game week can happen, you need to sort of think about that ahead of time. Like maybe a few weeks ago, you could have already brought in a Liverpool player like Jota, for example. That would have made a lot of sense, because you're sort of angling for that double game week 25, particularly with the Salah news as well. So things like that, I think you need to look out for. Another thing, of course, is on the flip side, right? Game week 26, I keep talking about it, but the reason why I don't want to go for a Newcastle player is because I've got Porro, I've got Richarlison, Palmer, Colwell, as guaranteed players who are going to blank within the Chelsea versus Tottenham game. And then I've got Liverpool players as well. So I need to think about in Game Week 26, if I made a move for a Newcastle player this week, my team would be so bad for Game Week 26. So think about the future as well, how these blank game weeks and double game weeks can sort of change your team, and try to create a team that's sort of strong for every week. Not just can I maximize and basically have a free hit team for this week, but actually over the course of 8 to 10 game weeks, am I going to have a pretty above average team? And that's the only advice that I could actually give right now. And look at, for example, models, for example, like the hub model, reviews models. They're very helpful. You can also look at goal scoring odds, assist odds, clean sheet odds. Those are very helpful as well in illustrating how to sort of plan around FPL too. Harjev, thank you so much for your super chat. Don't worry, I didn't miss this one. You missed the live stream last game week. I didn't live stream last game week, guys. I didn't live stream. Unfortunately, I was working in the office, which is why, of course, Walker Gate happened in my instance. Haaland worth a -4 this week? In my opinion, no. I can't guarantee right now that Haaland's going to start. As you can see, if I knew Haaland was going to start, I would be captaining him. I might even vice captain him, but I'm not guaranteed about that. I just know that for me, it's both up in the air that Alvarez or Haaland will start. I know that I'm going to go Alvarez to Haaland eventually, and that's pretty much why I've made that move. Also, bench Saka for De Bruyne. I'd actually probably play Saka over De Bruyne, but it's up to you. Personally, I would try to play the two of them. I'd like to actually know who you actually have in your team as well that allows you to bench Saka. But it could be, of course, that you have 3 wonderful forwards, and maybe you have players like Gordon this week. But who are your 5 midfielders that allow you to bench Saka or De Bruyne? That's what I need to know. Should I play Eze? I don't think there's any need to sort of play Eze. I am set on Palmer captaincy. Yes, I am. Very quickly though, I'm going to quickly check and see if we have any leaks this game week. So do hold on a second. I don't think we have any leaks at all. So that's the unfortunate situation that we sort of find ourselves in. Yep. Yeah, I think that's the unfortunate situation. I can't see any leaks right now, so we're just going to have to keep it as it is. I think with Eze as well, should I put Eze at the front of my bench? I guess I could do that. It's the only move I might change within my team. It's tough though because I really don't think Eze starts, but then it's going to be touch and go. So I think either he features or he doesn't. But then I think Gabriel's got more guarantees. I mean, who's really going to get auto sub to me unless Walker? Well, I guess if Walker's out, I'll get Gabriel anyways. Yeah, I'll probably keep my team as it is right now. All right, back to chat questions. No leaks apparently this week, so I can't really say anything. Bowen to Gordon or roll. I would go Bowen to Gordon. I think that's a fantastic move, 100%. Start Ariel or Turner. I'd probably go Areola. I think Turner's got a pretty bad fixture, and also I don't even expect Turner to start. Start Foden and Garnacho. I would start Garnacho. Good fixture. Good sort of attacking team to face in terms of attacking into that West Ham defense. Good minutes as well for Garnacho. I would definitely go Garnacho. What do you think about Solanke captain? As I said to other people in the chat, I would go Solanke captain 100% if I owned Solanke. But I'm in a situation where I sort of am. I'm deciding really between Palmer and Haaland and Watkins really. So that's the situation that I've fallen myself into. Let's do a captaincy poll for this week because I'm actually quite curious as to see who is everyone else. I don't have a secret chat, Gotham. I mean, it's just a chat with other FPL managers, and I managed to find out the news. It's not meant to be a secret, but if someone, for example, provides, let's say, a source to you and says keep it private, then I can't really do anything about it. Also, I just simply reacted with 2 minutes, so I didn't even have time to think or share information. Gameweek23 captaincy. So we have Palmer. And I do check this, whatever chats I have, all group chats that I have to check for leaks every week. That's the whole point of me being on live streams as well. Watkins, Gordon. This feels so bad. I can't even put all 5 options. I can't even put Haaland on the poll. This is so bad. All right, I'm going to do Palmer and Gordon together, just so we get a bit of flavor of like the ownership. All right, let's just have 3 options. All right, so that's going to be the captaincy poll. I'm just curious to see like what people are going for in terms of, you know, a midfield captain or a forward captain or Haaland in general. For whatever reason, I can't see the chat questions. Start Gross or Doku. I would definitely start Pascal Gross, mana 5. Who is blanking in Gameweek 25? There's no one blanking in Gameweek 25. There's people blanking in Gameweek 26. If I've misspoken, it's because I mean Gameweek 26. We're expecting Liverpool to blank, and we're expecting Chelsea and Tottenham to blank. Thoughts on Gordon captaincy? I think it's probably one of the better captaincy picks this week, for sure. Did the captaincy poll go through? I don't think it actually did. Start Martinelli, Gabriel, or Darwin. I'd probably start Martinelli. But I can't guarantee his minutes either. I'd probably start Martinelli. I would go with an attacker still. The auditing did go well, although unfortunately we now have to sign on Monday. So I'll be in the office on Monday as well. Did I sell Estupiñán? I never had Estupiñán. Gordon captain, I think, is perfectly good as a captaincy option. Darwin or Garnacho? I would go with Garnacho. I think Garnacho has a home fixture. He's going to play 90 minutes, and he's versus West Ham. So I would take that chance, as opposed to Darwin versus Arsenal. NPC Cooks, thank you so much. I really appreciate the really lovely words. I'm just going to quickly check if I missed a super chat. Non, thank you so much for your first super chat on the live stream. Really appreciate it. I'm really sorry that I missed it actually earlier. But thank you so much for your donation and for your support of the channel. Bowen or Garnacho? I would go Garnacho. Play Pedro Garnacho. I would play Pedro because I still think he's got the better fixture and penalties. And if he doesn't play, you just got Garnacho coming off the bench for you. Is Solanke the best captaincy in your opinion? Yes, I think Solanke is the best captaincy. Thanks, NPC Cooks. Bench Saka or Darwin? I would bench Darwin. I can't guarantee that, you know, Darwin's going to play 90 minutes. Rather, Saka's at home. He's going to be on penalties. Well, 70%. And yeah, I would take that chance where Saka's going to be the more interesting player. Plus, of course, he's a midfielder. Harjip says, Gordon, Palmer, Richarlison, De Bruyne, Saka, your mids. Okay, fine. Sorry. I understand why you're benching De Bruyne, Saka. Fine. Maybe you can bench Saka. Fine. If you like De Bruyne over Saka more, I can understand going for De Bruyne over Saka. I think you're actually right. Your midfield is so strong. It actually is between the two, between that whole lot. I'm trying to get the camera focused. I'm completely out of zoom. All right, yikes. I'm just gonna have to hope that it refocuses. Nope, doesn't recognize my face. Anytime now. Okay. I guess I'll just be a blur for a few minutes. I apologize for the people. Should I play Estupiñán over Walker? I probably would still play Walker over Estupiñán. Start Gusto or Udogi? I would probably start Gusto. Why Palmer captain over Watkins or Solanke? Well, first of all, I don't own Solanke, and second of all, in terms of Watkins, I prefer the penalty takers and the sort of home game players. Just lick the camera 3 times. All right, let's just do some licks. These licks are not working though. All right. This is awful. What an experience this is. Maybe I just need to clean my camera a little bit. Please answer. What's the question? All right, this camera thing is it's just not working. Play Gusto or Estupiñán. I would start Gusto personally. Okay. It's getting annoying now. Eze is out. I think Eze is out because unfortunately he has... I think he did sustain a tight hamstring. And I think he's going to have a scan, which is basically what I've heard. All right, I'm just not going to bother with the camera. We're just going to answer questions as a blur. So I apologize for the people. Once again, 2 free transfers and 10.6 million in the bank from Joe Fox. Should I do Alvarez to Haaland and Bowen to De Bruyne, or Alvarez to Haaland and Gross to Gordon? Or go big and get all 3? I would not go out of Gross this week because, as I said to some other people, right, I think there's a high chance that João Pedro's not going to play. So going Gross out doesn't make any sense for me. I don't think I would go for KDB this week because actually the KDB money could actually be Salah money as well on Gameweek 25. Now that double Gameweek 25 is confirmed, if you have Kevin De Bruyne money, maybe you've also got Salah money. I'm not sure. That's sort of a suggestion that I have. Going big, I think, is absolutely unnecessary, particularly when you have got Gordon. I do like the move. I actually like Bowen to Gross as a move. If you want to use 2 free transfers, I would go Bowen to Gordon, and I would actually go Alvarez to Haaland. Alternatively, you can play it safe and actually roll the 2 free transfers, and you can just simply go Alvarez to Haaland. But I think this is a good chance if you've got Bowen and you plan to play him anyways, that you can just simply move Bowen out of your team, and that's a good opportunity to do so. All right, back to the live chat. Captain Jota or Palmer? I mean, Jota has a very bad fixture. I would go Palmer 100%. Buy Jota now for double game week? No, I mean, you don't need to buy Jota now. Just buy Jota when he actually has... the Burnley fixture next week. Someone's asking a question about my team value. Could you show your team value in cash in the bank? I'm curious to compare someone who lost a lot of it because of Trashford and Bruno. I own Bruno and Trashford, although I probably shouldn't be calling him Trashford because he's doing quite well lately. Right, so my team value is 104.2 million plus 1.6, so I've got 105.8 million team value, and then my in the bank value, well, I mean, I literally just said my in the bank value, it's 1.6. All right, something has to be done about this camera. Please focus on me. Okay, I guess that's just life. I don't want to turn the stream off, but what is going on with my camera today? All right, apparently I'm just a foreign object. Bench 1, Saka, Jota, Richarlison. This is almost like, as if I was doing a stream and I was actually trying to, hide the fact that I want to hide my identity, basically. I'm just curious, why not captaining Haaland? I don't know if he's going to start. That's my problem. Start Darwin or Saka. I would start Saka. Just smack it a few times. Trent or Porro? I would start Porro. Start Darwin or Saka? I would start Saka. Out to Konsa or someone else? I would go Konsa. I think that's a very sensible move. Milenko, thank you so much for the super chat. It's the runny nose all over again. Yeah, but the runny nose is my camera. Turner for Dubravka -4. Unless you don't have another goalkeeper, I would go for it. It's just out of focus. Bring your hand. I know I need to bring my face closely, but all right, that's my face. Can you focus? No, of course not. We have to slowly sort of pan out. Hello. It's over, guys. It's actually over. Maybe I have to. We have focus. We have focus. We're so back. We're so back. Great. So start Alvarez or Foden. I'd probably start Alvarez, but it's up to you. ASMR vibe. Rodri or Douglas? I would play Douglas Luiz. I mean, Sheffield United away. I'd take that chance. Oh, hi, Fran. When did you get here? Yeah. Gordon in. I mean, I would love to go Gordon in. Unfortunately, I can't go Gordon in. Okay, I'm also going to stop sharing my last week team because there's no need to. Let's just show my team as it is. Okay, maybe I actually could zoom in a bit more and then that would be a bit cleaner, wouldn't it? You can just see my team like this. That's a lot nicer. Right, start Saka or Foden. I would start Saka. Needless flex. No, that was not a flex. Definitely not. I can't be flexing without Solanke. You in focus when you're very close. Yeah, no, I know, but the only issue I have is that my camera's sort of locked into a certain position, and then I've got my table here, so I have to sort of lean in too much. Bench 2 to be on Walker, Cash, or Senesi. I would not bench Senesi. I think it's a great game to play him. I would bench Cash because I think there's a pretty high chance that he actually is. That's the issue. I actually think I'd bench Cash, and I'd probably bench Estupiñán as well because I can't guarantee that Cash will start. And if you have Cash off the bench, that's immediately terrible. Whereas with Senesi, you're kind of guaranteeing that he starts. With Walker, I don't have a league, guys, but I think he'll start. And that's pretty much where I'd sit on that. And between Walker and Estupiñán, I think Walker might be better this week. Actually, I'd start Estupiñán over Walker. Sorry. I'd start Estupiñán over Walker. It's still Crystal Palace at home at the end of the day. And I still don't really rate the... as much as I actually own Crystal Palace attack, I still don't rate them too much, right? They still actually only accumulated an expected goal amount of like 1.2 versus Sheffield United. So that's not exactly great. They were pretty fortunate to actually have 3 goals between, let's say, Eze and Elise. So, yeah. Will I captain Palmer or Holland or Gordon? I think they're all great picks. Personally, I like Palmer the most out of the 3 that you've suggested. But of course, you've got Holland and Gordon waiting in the wings as well. Bench Porro, Gabriel. I would definitely bench Gabriel in this situation. Start Maguire or Gabriel. I'd probably start Maguire actually, but I mean, Maguire is pretty unlikely to start though. No, right? So I would have to play the other player. Start Jota, Richarlison. I would start Richarlison. Bench Senesi or Porro. I'd probably bench. I would reluctantly bench Porro. There's a lot of holes in my team in blank Game Week 26. You're right. You're right. But of course, I've got transfers, right? So, I mean, who would I be playing blank Game Week 26? Let's have a look. So, I'd have to play Areola. My defense is a joke. I'd play Gabriel. Play Walker. Probably have to transfer out one of Porro or Colwill eventually. So that's one thing I have to manage. Midfield wise, I have Foden, Saka, Eze. So that's 3 players right now. And then I've got Watkins and Haaland. So I still need sort of 2 transfers to make Game Week 26 feasible for me. And I think Solanke will be in my team by then. So if I roll a free transfer on Game Week 24, I should be able to sort of make 1 transfer on Game Week 25 for a Liverpool player. And then I still have 2 free transfers on Game Week 26 to fix my team. So when you look at my team now, I just need to field an 11 for Game Week 26. So in terms of addressing the holes, I still think I've got more than enough transfers waiting in the wings where I can sort of address that. So I think as long as I'm able to bring in a defender and probably Solanke for Darwin, I think I'll be fine, actually. So I'm not too worried about blank Game Week 26. I just, and that's the only reason why I haven't brought in a Newcastle player, because I don't really want to play that Newcastle player versus an Arsenal. Hey, Fran, bench 1, Constance, Stupian, Porro, Trent. I'd probably bench Trent. Start Bowen or Garnacho. I would go Garnacho. Bench 1 is Stupian, Gusto, or Saka. I'd bench Stupian, probably. We want chat answers, not what you're doing Game Week 26. Well, actually, technically, my answer to Game Week 26 was a chat answer. Botman or Trent. I would go with Botman this week. It's a really good fixture. Luton at home. Solanke or Palmer captain. I would go Solanke if I own Solanke, but here I am owning Palmer. and I don't own Solanke at all. So I'm going for Palmer captaincy myself. Start 3 out of Bowen, Foden, Pedro, Saka. I would probably bench Foden because if Pedro doesn't play, you just get Foden off the bench. Leno, Areola, what do you think, Fran? I'd go Leno. Bench Saka or Nunez. I'd probably bench Nunez. Start Darwizzi or Eze. I would start Darwizzi. I mean, I have the same conundrum within my team, and I've gone for Darwizzi. I appreciate you so much, man. Thank you so much, Soldier Boy. I appreciate you for being always around the live stream and supporting the channel. Back to the live chat, though. Bench Foden or Elise? I'd probably bench Foden. Because actually, if Eze is out, Elise is probably on penalties, which would be insane, wouldn't it? If Elise is on penalties, I would start Elise over him. Captain Holland or KDB? I'd definitely captain Holland over KDB. But I wouldn't really captain either. Bench 1, Darwin, Bowen, Foden, or Richarlison. I'd probably bench Darwin, to be honest. Probably bench Darwin. I just think it's between Darwin and Foden for me. And I think Foden and Darwin sort of have equal chance of maybe missing out in terms of good minutes for this game week, just because of, for example, Darwin's injury situation and Foden, of course, playing too many fixtures in a row. So I think in that situation, you probably have a chance here to bench Darwin, because he does have the worst fixture anyways on paper. Nkunku or Foden? I would definitely start Nkunku over him. Bench Bowen or Elise? I'd bench Bowen. I think I always like my penalty takers. They're both away from home, so I would go with Elise. Please answer start Zinchenko or Saliba. I would go Saliba. Because of course, sometimes, right, when you watch Zinchenko play, versus a very tough team, particularly really good attackers, we sometimes see that Zinchenko gets early subbed, and that could be very harmful. So that could be a concern. You know, for example, let's say if Zinchenko is not cutting it within the first 45 minutes, we could very well see him get subbed off at 45. That's a very aggressive situation. But yeah. Why am I captaining Palmer? First of all, I think he's facing a bottom 6 sort of defense. He's at home. He's a penalty taker. He's probably going to play 85 to 90 minutes, and I rather take that. So there's a couple intangibles there that I prefer over Watkins, and that's it. I think it's between Watkins and Palmer. I'm not so hot with KDB. I think, yes, because he is one of the older players within the team, and I also think that over the course of the years, when we see, for example, Pep have some veteran players or some players that don't necessarily need to play every game, he doesn't use the opportunities to play people all the time. So with KDB, I think he is sort of slowly building up his fitness. He's aware of the fact that it's a work in progress. It's not like he needs to play football and start every week. Listen to KDB's own comments about his fitness and managing this sort of journey back to full fitness. It's a process. It's not where he is constantly seeking to maximize the amount of game time he has within the Premier League. So because of that, I'm not that high on KDB. And also, that sort of money could help you. That could be the difference between whether you can get to Salah, for example, in double Gameweek 25 and things like that. 5 minutes left. Bench 1 out of Foden and Douglas Luiz. I'd bench Foden personally. Bench Bowen or Saka. I'd bench Bowen. Captain Palmer. I'd bench Foden. Sorry, because you've got Foden as well. Captain Palmer, Solanke or Gordon. I would go with Solanke. I think it's very close. And Nkunku to Haaland for -4. I don't think it's worth it. Why not Captain Haaland? I can't guarantee that Haaland's going to start. I missed the Haaland price rise. Am I cooked? I don't think you're cooked at all. What's wrong with missing the Haaland price rise? Can you not afford him anymore? Haaland or KDB captain? I'd probably go Haaland if you really had to pick between the two, and that's what you prefer. Start Gross or I would start Gross, Pascal Gross for sure. Why captain Solanke over Palmer? Could you elaborate? Well, when I talk about the intangibles in terms of facing a weaker team and having 90 minutes of football, these sorts of things, I think Solanke still is facing the weaker team from a sort of attack versus defense point of view. And that's pretty much it. His expected goals per 90 is insane. So higher chance of getting, goals, for example, when we talk about goal scoring odds, which I think I'd prefer. He's also on penalties, so it's not like something Palmer has over him. And they're both at home. So that's why I would prefer Solanke. Plus, also at the end of the day, Solanke has less ownership. So even if I think they're 50-50 situations, right, I would still prefer going for the pick that has less ownership so that I can maximize my rank gain in case things actually go well for me. Bench Poro Gabriel. I would definitely bench Gabriel. I think this is a good week to bench your Arsenal defenders if you can. I mean, that's why I bench my Arsenal defenders. 600 of you guys in the chat. That is an absolute record for us. So thank you guys so much for joining the chat. Really appreciate the support and really love seeing you guys around. Hope you guys have made your moves. Please Solanke or Darwin in. I would not be going Darwin in this week. He's versus Arsenal, so go Solanke. But you should not be bringing Darwin in versus Arsenal, in my opinion. You could bring in Darwin next week. So if you want to roll the free transfer, go Darwin next week, but don't go Darwin versus Arsenal. When are you planning on wildcarding? Probably game week 26 if my team looks awful for blank game week 26, or I just wildcard on game week 30 plus, maybe 31, something like that. Just because when we think about the double game weeks, we know that this is probably going to be a pretty big double game week on game week 34 or 37. We need to be able to navigate that because unfortunately the way the blanks are outlined with the doubles, for example, just look at the Liverpool situation. You've got a double, then an immediate blank. So the Liverpool players are amazing one week and then terrible the next. So you need to manage that. And I think I'm going to save my wild card to do so. Please start Foden or Gross. I would start Gross 100%. Saka or Foden start. I would start Saka. I would, for anyone who actually has João Pedro, I would start him because for me, I think either he starts and he plays or he gets auto subbed. So that's not an issue. Bench Foden or Bowen. I would bench Foden in that situation. I think Foden is a little bit at risk of rotation this week, so I would bench him. Start Ariel or Petrovic. Definitely Petrovic. Very easy answer for me. Gordon or Palmer captain. I would go for Palmer captain myself, but I think Gordon's very close and perfectly fine to go Gordon. Bench Foden or Darwin. I would actually bench Darwin. I think he is the worst matchup. Olise or Foden. I would start Olise in that situation. Alvarez or Bowen bench. I would definitely be going for... I'd probably go for Alvarez on the bench, to be honest. Get more guarantees with Bowen's minutes this week anyways. Am I doing any changes? No, this is actually the week. This is my team, and it's locked. Captain Palmer or Holland. I've gone for Palmer. I'm not going to do any moves over the next 2 minutes, guys. So this is my team as it is. No need to ask any questions in terms of my team. Captain Palmer Holland. I prefer Palmer. I'm going for Palmer. And that's that. Gabriel or Estupiñán. I would play Estupiñán. Porro or Konsa, I would probably still play Porro. Start Gross or Cunha, I would play Gross. Start Saka or Richarlison, I would probably actually start Richarlison, ironically. Whom to bench between Gabriel and Zinchenko? I would just go with I would bench Zinchenko, actually. Just because, as I said, I think when he's versus weaker or versus stronger attacks, there is a propensity to have Zinchenko benched at times earlier. Should I bench Botman? No, I think this is a great week to play Botman, so I would play Botman if you can. Any news on João Pedro? No, but I would still start him anyways because I really can't see him being on the bench and coming on for like 15-20 minutes if he's not ready to start. Either he starts or he doesn't play at all. That's my sort of contention. And Nkunku or Foden, I would play Nkunku. Solanke versus Palmer captain, I would go Solanke captain. Will Walker start? I can't guarantee that. I think he starts, so that's why I've done that. Ali Hussein, thank you so much. Welcome to President at the deadline, at the buzzer. Welcome to member. Captain Palmer, Solanke or Gordon. Solanke for me. Good luck to you, Ali. Solanke or Watkins to Holland or wait 1 week. I think you can wait 1 week. And that's the deadline, guys. Let's refresh the page. We've locked in Palmer captaincy. All right, actually, now that we're actually at the deadline, I'm curious to see if we can actually just finally do the poll. Because that was super hectic. But thank you guys so much for being in the chat. Really appreciate it here. We broke some viewership records, which is amazing. And hopefully we can actually continue. I think this is going to be a really bad gaming for me. I'm going to be honest. I don't have Newcastle. I don't have Solanke. Things could go really poorly for me. But hopefully Palmer captaincy could carry me quite a bit. And maybe Trent can do something in a very tough matchup. So let's see. I'm going to bunch Solanke and Watkins together. And I'm going to bunch Gordon Palmer. And then I think a lot of people are going Holland / KDB. So that's going to be the last option. All right, quickly going to respond to chat. So someone says, love the content. The blurred camera was so dramatic. Thank you so much for loving the content, by the way. I really appreciate that. May I ask why Gusto over Trent? I mean, Gusto's versus Wolves at home. So clean sheet odds for me in that situation. You captain Solanke as well. Very interesting. There's such a strong mix. A lot of Solanke versus Watkins, but a lot of Gordon and Palmer as well. This week is going to be a huge mix in captaincy. We just have to hope Luton scores. Yeah, Raz, I agree. I mean, if Adebayo can keep cooking, fine with me. Fine with me. Most professional and concise created by far. Thank you, Time Waste. I mean, so I definitely do take a very analytical approach. So I think when I come to the streams, I'm very prepared in terms of like looking at odds, getting prepared in terms of that, but also just generally in terms of the landscape, you know, spend a lot of time on FPL, and hopefully it sort of does show across, and I'm really glad that you actually feel that way. Didn't realize so many people own Solanke. Yeah, about that. Solanke in December absolutely destroyed me. Steve, thank you so much for being a member for 1 month. The foreign object will be missed. I mean, I guess I prefer to see my face in HD quality as opposed to being a blob on screen. So there's that. Will I get Ivan Toney? No, unfortunately not, because the double game week in 25 is going to happen for Darwin. Previously, what I was thinking was that actually, if I went towards game week 25 and there's no Liverpool double game week, I was going to go Darwin to Tony on game week 25. But of course, right now, because there's a double game week for Darwin, I don't really have an opportunity to go Tony because I'm going to miss Tony for the double game week on 25. And then actually, I believe, Solanke is going to have a double game week 28. So I'd rather go from Darwin to Solanke, and then I'd probably have to miss out on Tony, unfortunately. I went with your choice of captain. I tried to do a similar team as you. Fair enough, Tyrone. What does your game week or game week 26, game week 25 or game week 26 team look like? So right, obviously my team in game week 25. I mean, it's gonna have triple City. It's gonna have I don't know if I'll have triple Liverpool. I'll need to think about that. I'll have Darwin. I'll have Trent, but I'm not sure if I actually have and I'm not actually sure if I'm gonna have three Liverpool. We need to sort of think about that, right? Because obviously investing into another Liverpool player means that I am investing into a blank game week 26 player. So we need to sort of marry up the two. If I can go for another defender and I can still have three defenders for game week 26, I could go for Virgil van Dijk. I could go for even Allison, who's not a bad keeper to have on a double game week. You copy my exact team every week because it's so much fun. What does that mean? As a Salah owner, it'll be hard bringing in Haaland. That's the thing, right? I've got Trent in my team. It's very hard for me to actually go Salah, right? I kind of closed myself from the opportunity to go Salah. But also, I think we need to think about the fact that, first of all, I would not be recommending people to bring in Salah anytime soon. We just need to wait for confirmation that he's actually back to playing football. And we know how Liverpool is. They care about sports science, and they make a huge sort of difference in terms of understanding that players need rest. And whenever we have a double game week opportunity to rest someone who's coming back from injury, which would be Salah, I actually think Salah's not going to play, the full sort of 180 minutes in the double game week 25. Get Pan FPL open and let's spend the next 2 hours working on your team. What's Pan FPL? Have I missed something here? What do you do, Porro, to... Would you do Porro to Trent Alexander-Arnold for the double game week? I think so. I'm actually considering Porro to Virgil van Dijk. I hope Salah misses double game because you can't afford him. Exactly. Plan FPL. Yeah. Gordon or Palmer? I've gone Palmer. I mean, I don't even own Gordon right now, unfortunately. Prefer wildcard 26 or free? I actually prefer neither. I'm not going to go for... I don't think I'm going to plan for either, basically. This was my wildcard starting 11. You've got Konsa, Burn, Udogi, Gordon, Palmer, KDB, Jota, Richarlison, Holland, Solanke. Okay, I think Konsa's great because I think Newcastle rotates well. And then obviously you've got Konsa who plays in Game 26. Udogi's actually not bad because of course at this sort of price point I think he's a really good pick. Dubravka's good for this game week. I wonder if you actually have a sort of a rotation keeper. Do you have a keeper in Game Week 25 or 26? I do like in general the draft. I think the only thing that I would say is that you do still have quite a few sort of blank Game Week 26 players, so you need to still manage that. But I'm sure obviously now that you've actually made your wild card, you actually have the opportunity to sort of plan for that. So I think that's fine, and I really like the team. Do you think Joe would be a good pick of double Game Week 25? All right, am I missing something here? But who is Joe? Are we saying Jota? I think Jota could be a very good pick, and I very well could go Jota. Nice weekend to you as well, Roger. Moez says, I was so split between Darwin and Solanke. It was Solanke this week or Roll and Darwin and Jota next week. Went with Darwin over Solanke. Look, I mean, I get that. But I think personally, if you went for Darwin this week, it's okay because now you actually have the double game week, right? So Darwin probably is going to start versus Arsenal, for all intensive purposes. And you're going to get that game, even though in comparison, of course, Solanke has a much better fixture this week. But the reality is you're still going to get Burnley at home, and then you've got a double game week 25 player. So I think over the course of the next few game weeks, it should bear out. So I wouldn't say don't set your hopes up. Don't get too upset if, let's say, Solanke outscores Darwin this week. But just know that you've made a better move in terms of projecting towards the next future game weeks. I'm not going to read that meme, but you've got me there. Joe Go. All right. I think that's a Joe no-go for me. Soldier boy. Yeah, I got cooked there by meme. Fair enough. Noah says, damn, Fran, you're killing me. The wildcard urge is eating me alive. Why do I mean, what's the need to wildcard early versus the need to, if you wildcard early, eventually people are going to wildcard as well. So whatever gains you make, if you think that you're going to make, you're still going to have to deal with the fact that people are going to make gains later. So the question is actually, do you think people will get better gains with a later wildcard or an early wildcard? Because obviously an early wildcard can give you some sort of short-term happiness, right? You're going to set your team up for the future. But then what happens when we have doubles? What happens when we have blanks? What happens when we have more doubles? Like, how are you going to plan for that? How are you going to plan for your bench boost as well? You know, it's really nice to actually be able to wildcard into a bench boost. But if we can't, if you use your wildcard too early, you might not be able to actually plan for that very well. What's the worst ranking I've ever gotten? 6.5 million. But that was actually when I only played 8 game weeks of FPL. So I had a friend maybe like 4 years ago ask me if I wanted to play FPL in a mini league with him. And at the time, I didn't actually know that people cared about rank. So this was before I actually played FPL like seriously. So I just played 8 game weeks and I beat him in the mini league. But then he was like, "Oh, well, you used your chips," and I was like, "Well, yeah. Well, you asked me to play this mini league, and yeah, I've got a 6.4 million rank." So I wasn't playing FPL then, but yeah. And then I also have another season where I just stopped playing after game week 4. So I think I just had a rolling team from game week 1. Fran, who you captain watching from USA? I went with Palmer. And I think Solanke is probably the best pick this week. I was saying that in the stream. So I think, Luis, you've actually definitely got the right pick. Congrats for 22K. Oh, did we hit 22K subs? Did we hit 20? Awesome. Thank you guys so much, by the way. I actually forgot. Like and subscribe. Who should I play out of Maguire, Cash, and Gabriel? Are we talking next week? Are you going to free hit in Gaming 25? No, I've got 5 double game weekers already, so no. You think I made a mistake starting Estupiñán over Trent? No, I don't think so. You've got Crystal Palace at home. That's a great game. I would definitely play Estupiñán over Trent. No mistakes there. The come out has been real. I appreciate that. Actually, the support has been amazing this season, and thank you guys so much. And obviously, this season I've been very fortunate as well, luck-wise. So that's been nice. But yeah, I mean, I've been basically playing FPL avidly for three seasons, I would say. Well, four seasons. So 4 years ago, I used to run sort of a tactics channel. So I didn't even know that people played FPL seriously, and I didn't even really understand single game weeks and double game weeks. So I kind of just played a season completely blind. I wasn't on YouTube. I wasn't on Twitter. I didn't really read any news. I didn't read even leaked lineups. I wasn't looking for leaks. And then I got a 50K rank from a season where I was just watching football during COVID and then making tactics videos. And then suddenly I actually realized, okay, I've actually got a decent rank in FPL, and I wanted to play more fantasy games. So I played the Fantasy Euros. And then I started making Fantasy Euros content, and that actually blew up. So then I actually got invested into, looking into FPL and actually looking into how to become, a better FPL manager, how to become a little bit more analytically inclined. And also, I think the biggest issue that I had, particularly my first 2 seasons, even though they were still sort of top 100K seasons, was that I really struggled with the blank game weeks and the double game weeks. I didn't, I wasn't on Twitter. I wouldn't read what Ben Crellin suggested was a double. I wouldn't read what Ben Crellin suggested was a blank. So I didn't really understand the sort of fixture navigation when the cup fixtures come around, when people go deep into the FA Cup, deep into the Carabao/EFL Cup, and the impacts of that on, your FPL experience. So previously, I just like to pick players that I think were really good. But then the issue, of course, is in this part of the season, one of the issues that you have is that instead of actually, for example, let's say if Harry Kane played versus Leicester at home, that's a god tier fixture, right? But ultimately, let's say if Richarlison, back when he was an Everton penalty taker, had Leicester at home himself and Wolves away, you would actually probably still want to have Richarlison over Kane. And it was so hard for me to conceptualize that, even though it sounds super logical, right? Because if you think about it too, like every week, people have odds to score, right? You can see that on gambling websites. I'm not telling you to gamble. That's not my point. But you can see that actually for most players within the Premier League and even top tier players, the odds to score or the odds to assist are always below 50% because it's very unlikely to actually consistently produce outcomes as a player. So when we think about how good certain players are, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that appearance points actually make up a lot of the FPL points. So when you're thinking about blanks and double game weeks and things like that, a lot of that planning is just simply about appearance points and then also maximizing fixtures like that. Meme says he's a gambling addict now. Thanks, Fran. You're welcome for the support. Appreciate that. Do I do content creation part-time? I mean, no. I mean, I work full-time. I mean, I don't know how to answer the question. Like I work a full-time job. Like I work a full 9 to 5 plus overtime. But I don't get paid for overtime. I just have to work overtime. So this week, for example, I was working until, I don't know, 11 p.m. One day I slept at 7 a.m. One day I slept, I mean, most of the days I slept at 3 to 4 a.m. So I had crazy deadlines, which is why I missed last week's deadline and also missed last week's live stream. But yeah. Going back to some of the questions, though, people are asking about things like, let's see, sorry. Roshan says, I literally have 0 Liverpool and 2 City Akanji and Holland. I'm having a disaster. Well, no, right? You're not going to have a disaster because Game Week 24 and Game Week 25, you've got 2 transfers then at the bare minimum. And you could very well still pick the 2. Like, you still have the opportunity now, particularly since it seems like you actually have money in the bank. You can still go for the best Liverpool player to have in the double, the best Liverpool player to, or maybe 2 Liverpool players to have a double, or just get triple City, right? Because obviously, if you go double Liverpool now, it's even harder to manage blank Game Week 26 for you. So what I would say, of course, or recommend is probably go for that triple City, and of course, just get another Liverpool player in your team, someone that you're comfortable with captaining potentially, right? Unless it's going to be Haaland. How many like me have not yet bought into Haaland? I think a lot of people have done so. When is the best time to use bench boost? I would probably say probably game week 34 or game week 37. One of those big doubles. This is my first season, so I scuffed it up accidentally. Used my Tripoli captain, but I'm doing all right. Rank 1 millionth when it's not bad. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing about FPL too is like when you go on a huge run of luck, you suddenly sometimes it's hard to see like whether you're actually playing well, if that makes sense, or whether you're playing poorly. And the same thing with when you have bad luck. And I think the biggest thing about FPL too is like when you look back at your seasons, look back at your transfers, think about what you were thinking about in terms of your process every game week. You need to think about, was I actually thinking about, was I hoping for an outcome, or was I actually trying to plan for an outcome that seems quite achievable? So for example, when some people went Holland last week, and I'm not trying to insult anyone, but it's like, was it likely that Holland was going to start last week, or are you just hoping that Holland starts and you have a differential Holland? Personally, I think it's the first case, right? It was pretty unlikely that Holland was just going to immediately start his first game as soon as he was back in the squad. So on that basis, I'd say when you're planning for moves in the future, that also has a lot of impact, right? Because a lot of people like to think about ceiling, but they don't like to think about how bad things can get. If you start to pick players who, for example, don't have a high ceiling and have really poor minutes outcomes, right? Someone who usually comes off the bench but is brilliant off the bench, for example. Who's a good example of that? Trossard, for example, right? It could work out, right? There could be miraculous circumstances where suddenly Martinelli's injured and you've lucked into making a good move. But I would say you've been lucky. Like if you suddenly go Trossard when Martinelli's fit and Havertz is fit, right? To suddenly go Trossard and get like points off the bench. So that's sort of what I'm thinking about. Even, for example, 2 weeks ago when Martinelli came off the bench and scored a brace, like for me, that's a lot of fortune. And so you need to be thinking about every week, am I setting my team up so that it's the most consistent, so that it's not the worst? Because very often when people come off the bench, they're not getting a brace. They're getting 1 point or 2 points max. So that's what I think is worth thinking about. Could I please selfishly request a chip strategy video? That's actually a good idea. I'll probably work on that over the course of this week. Are you in consulting for your day job? I'm an external auditor, but yeah. Hi, Fran. Great stream. Question for next game week. Gross replacement, Jota, Gordon, or Lise? 0 live 3 MCI. I would probably go Jota. Yeah. Because, I mean, Gordon's best game is this week. You kind of missed the boat on that. Whereas Jota's next best single is the week. And then, of course, he's got a double. So I think Jota's just going to give you much more value. Yeah, public accounting, I guess, is what it's called in some other places in the world. Who are the best Liverpool and City? I think we have to sort of wait first of all. I think Virgil van Dijk is actually the best defender because I'm not 100% sure about Trent's minutes. So I would say that for defense. And then with Walker, I still think with City, I still think it's Walker. Despite the scandal. And I mean, I own Walker and I hope he starts, but I mean, who knows? Like he could be benched again, but I think it's unlikely. And then in terms of the midfielders, obviously, if I had to say City mid, I'd say KDB. But the reality is you also have to balance that, right? For example, do you prefer, let's say, Jota over KDB? Like, I probably would prefer Jota over KDB, if I'm honest. Just because it would be easier to move out of Jota, right? And I'm suddenly not, for example, using a lot of funds to just hold KDB in my team for a long time, which could be bad. Yeah, I am big four. Who's most likely to miss between Julian Alvarez, KDB, and Foden? Honestly, I think it could be Foden. I think it could be Foden. I think he's played a lot of minutes so far. Hasn't really gotten chances to rest. So it probably is Foden for me. But unless, let's say, Pep Guardiola takes an approach where, KDB has played two games in a row, two starts in a row, it makes sense to actually rest KDB, then maybe it's KDB. But KDB also got taken off early, which usually I think is always indicative of, okay, we can just use you for the next game, right? Whereas with Foden, he's played every single game, like back to back, and this is a good opportunity to sort of maybe give him a rest. Speaking about ceilings, who has the highest ceiling this game, week 23? Haaland, obviously, if he plays 90 minutes. I think is probably the answer. You expect to be taking some hits. Maybe one hit maximum for game week 26. But I don't think I'm actually going to be taking any hits at all. Didn't they all start last game? What do you mean? Like, Katie? Yeah, they did. You're right. But I think we're putting the expectation here that Haaland would start, right? Which Haaland didn't start last game. So if, let's say, Haaland starts, one of them, in theory, has to drop out. Keep in mind as well that Bernardo Silva was benched. So if he comes back into the lineup, that could be two spots that are lost. But it also depends, of course, on whether they play two holding mids as well. Because in theory, you could just drop one of the holding mids and just play Foden. Thoughts on bench boost game week 25, since City and Liverpool usually get high points? Well, I mean, we're all going to play our Liverpool and City players. So the question, of course, is whether your bench is actually good, because you shouldn't be bench boosting game week 25 because Liverpool and City are going to get high points. Everyone's going to get those Liverpool and City players in their starting team. The question is your bench good enough for game week 25? Bernardo was benched for Nunez probably. That's how City line. Yeah, but the thing is, City's lineups are still a bit flexible, right? Sometimes if you play a weaker team, or let's say you play a five at the back, or let's say you play away from home, you expect to be more dominant. Listen to even, for example, how Pep plans the Burnley game. He says, I'm planning for what companies, like based on what I'm expecting from what company's going to put out as well. So a lot of the lineups are adjusted. We can't just look at, hey, last week we just had this lineup, one like for like sub. I think, for example, even when you look at Arteta, for example, like when he was a bit younger as a manager, we saw him do like for like subs a lot, and actually very late substitutions. Now you're seeing a little bit more flexible substitutions, but also because the squad is a bit more diverse and they can do a variety of roles. I suppose they're still pretty rigid though, Arsenal. So maybe not a good example to compare to, but yeah. Binod says he's forgotten the deadline. How did you line up? If Salah isn't fully fit, who from Liverpool are you looking to bring in for game week 25? Probably Virgil van Dijk. Has the double game week for Liverpool been confirmed? Correct. Yeah, captain for fun, Gordon is perfectly fine. What's wrong with Gordon? I think Gordon's amazing. Gordon is amazing for this week. All right. We still have 10 minutes until lineups, right? So let's just wait for those lineups. And then I'm going to hop off the stream. But I really appreciate you guys being here with me. And yeah, that's cool. What are we expecting here? I anything but a Pickford clean sheet would make my day, please. I can't handle the amount of Pickford clean sheets I've had, particularly starting with him game week 1. I don't think I got a single clean sheet with him, and he's like leading the league in clean sheets and leading FPL in terms of goalkeeper points. Can't stand Pickford right now. You captain Darwin and Solanke whenever they blanked. So I appreciate you, meme. I do indeed. You benched Esteban and Foden for Garnacho and Gusto. I think those are good moves. Those are good moves, my friend. Like, West Ham are an awful defensive team. I would like to target them. Fran, like, I've been with you with your channel. It's been days. Am I misreading that? Or what do you mean? And bench Foden. I think benching Foden is fine. I've actually recommended people bench Foden. I don't have a good enough team. You put the captain on Solanke. I think that's gonna be awesome. You need him praying for Man City clean sheet. We need Ederson to do his job for once. For once, please. You made a last minute change from Solanke. I've gone for Palmer, so I'm not gonna say it's a bad move. I mean, I certainly don't want my captaincy to be a bad move. But yeah, I think that's a good move. I still think Solanke is a wonderful pick. Honestly, I will say it again. Solanke, Watkins, Gordon, Palmer, all amazing captains. I am half Spanish, yes. Fran, but I have João Pedro in front. Yeah, but João Pedro is probably not going to play, right? So either he starts and he plays, and that's great for you because it's João Pedro. Or he's just not going to play at all because he's not fit enough. I'm going to end the captaincy poll as well. That was a pretty even split. Are you open to Allison? Absolutely, right? Because Allison would sort of allow me to have more defensive options exactly for Game 26. Agree. And that's what I said as well. But the issue is, though, if you think about it, is do I really want to be selling Dubravka? It really depends on if Pope is back soon, then that would be cool. You're from Uruguay? That's awesome. Are you still based there? How early is it over there? How much will not owning Haaland hurt this game week? I don't think it'll hurt too much, but we'll find out soon in terms of the effective ownership, wouldn't we? So that will be interesting. Sorry, I was just quickly checking if there's any news in the timeline. You watching any of the matches? Well, it's not gonna be tonight for me. It's gonna be 11:23 p.m. right now, and I will be watching Everton versus Tottenham. Absolutely, I'll be watching all the games of football as per usual. Well, actually, I did not watch any of the fixtures last week. I was literally in the office working late every night of all the games. Even the City game, even the Arsenal game. Like, I missed every single fixture. So I had to sort of rewatch highlights, and I also had to just look at the underlying stats from the games, rewatched some aspects of some matches. But yeah, that was I absolutely hate it when I don't get to watch football. But yeah, that was me this week. Very busy. You're in Spain, you're half Colombian. Oh, okay, on your dad's side and Euromix. Where in Spain is my family? Well, as my father's from Madrid. It is my first year at FPL, and your videos have helped me get top million. That's awesome, Robbie. I'm really happy about that. Fran, I had Haaland, and I was trolling around in Captain Gordon. Yeah, but trolling around in Captain Gordon is perfectly fine. I had Haaland, and I didn't even vice captain him. If I give you my team ID, would you look at it? Probably. But you could probably DM me as well, and I could probably have a look at your team. If Haaland starts, he is surely going to score. Yeah, but what's stopping Gordon from scoring? What's stopping Palmer from scoring? You know, I mean, these are good picks versus good teams for a reason. I mean, not good teams; they're facing very bad teams in terms of. Well, actually, Luton obviously they very well might escape relegation. They're actually playing very well. Do I have a mini league? I do actually. So I think let me quickly find the mini league link for you, and I'll just. Actually, I'll paste the code. I can't find the mini league code. Give me one sec, sorry. Let me quickly go find that. So this is the mini league code. It's DJVXXX. How often do you bet if you do? I don't bet. I haven't bet this season on football, but I'll tell you something funny. So last season when I was free hitting, I think, do you guys remember the free hit when we all went Johnston and we all got the clean sheet that game week? Do you guys remember which game week that was last season when we free hit? When a lot of us free hit at least. Solanke's a great captain, guys. Absolutely. I mean, I would absolutely not be worried one bit if I captain Solanke. As in, he's just a good pick, right? So, you know, before all the hindsight comes in, blah blah blah. Watkins, Solanke, Gordon, Palmer, in my mind, were all amazing picks. So can't complain. Maybe 33, 34. Right, so there was a week where we all got Johnstone, but I think it was also a really good Liverpool fixture. I remember Arsenal had a blank game week as well, which is why I think we were sort of playing around that too. Or maybe I'm misremembering, but actually no, Arsenal were playing for sure. You did Gordon captain last minute. That's pretty cool, Anmar. Good luck with that. What is the best way to start an FPL YouTube channel? You've ended top 10. You've ended top 10K the last 4 seasons. I mean, there's no best way. You just start making content. You look at your videos. You see whether you think things can improve. Can the graphics improve? Can the animations improve? Can my streaming setup improve? Can my lighting improve? Yeah, like am I used to? Am I comfortable speaking to the camera? Am I comfortable, for example, reading chat messages? Am I comfortable? Making content, and eventually like viewers will come. If you want to do Spanish speaking content, you might even be able to do that as well. I know there's a Spanish speaking community within FPL, but I would just start making content and then just start looking at each of your videos, reflect on them, and just see how do I make things better. I mean, look at other content creators as well, like see what they're doing that you like, that you've enjoyed, and then yeah, go from there. It failed. It's DJVXXX. It works for me though. That's the auto join link. I hope that works for you guys. We'll be very glad to do a watch long soon if you have the time/opportunity for it. Good luck this week, bro. Keep it up. I could actually do it. Yeah, I don't think the Spanish community is big enough. I think you're right. You're right there. So that is an unfortunate element, but yeah, I mean, you could definitely just start making content and yeah, take that chance if you want to. All right, for the guy who actually said, "Oh, I can't really even check I can't really check IDs right now because the FPL website's like loading, isn't it? So I'm not sure if I can look at your team right now." All right, 1 minute until we find out Richarlison starts. If he doesn't, I'm actually gonna cry. Oh, it's actually already been posted. James Maddison, Timo Werner, Brennan Johnson, and former Everton player Richarlison all start for Tottenham at Goodison Park this afternoon. I'm looking forward to Richarlison starting, scoring, and then not celebrating. Hope that's just that's a nice little outcome, I would say. Oh, Luis, that's awesome. You're doing Spanish content. Yeah, that would be great. I mean, at the end of the day, for example, I know someone from Poland who runs a YouTube channel, and he has a very dedicated but very strong viewership, And ultimately, for example, there's still enough players, for example, from Poland who play the game. So, for example, let's say, if you're Polish, right? Richly, excuse me, Richarlison rested. What are you saying there? Sorry, it's not. It's not 11:30 p.m. It's 11:30 a.m. I'm so sorry, Gary. I haven't slept enough this week. Let's just say that, right? Apologies. Have you joined the secret Hong Kong mini league? Where's the secret Hong Kong invite? Right, sorry. So back to questions. What did you think about this transfer window? For example, Werner, Dragusin, and I mean, so I think they spotted that out. Obviously, that they lack center back depth. So I think Dragusin's amazing. Werner, I think, is interesting because when Son comes back, my question is Brennan Johnson good enough to continue playing on the right? Like, probably not. We're just going to see Kulusevski on the right. So I just think right now you have an opportunity to sort of maximize on Richarlison. But then I think Richarlison, Son, and Werner will all share minutes eventually, which will be bad. So that's tough. You got knocked out round one of the Australia Cup. I mean, I don't even think I'm in any cups right now. I got smashed because I didn't own Solanke when like half the game went for Solanke when Haaland was injured, and I did not own the hat trick obviously. And as it turns out, I lost in all my cup matches. Highly exclusive. I'll probably join actually. So if you can remind me to join before the deadline in next stream, I'd happily do it. What analytic websites do I use? So I use fbref.com to sort of look at player stats. Obviously, I use Fantasy Football Hub, which I'm affiliated with, as you can see with the link in description. But I also use FPL Review in terms of FPL modeling. I also look at, for example, Rob T FPL on Twitter. So he just looks at market odds of players, so goal scoring odds, clean sheet odds. In terms of other analytics, I would obviously argue that actually Ben Crellin's, for example, fixture probabilities is actually analytics of some sort. Definitely one of that. Definitely all of those are very useful. You're out of all cups as well. Yeah, it's not been a good cup run for me this season. I'm just purely playing for overall rank. So we'll see how that goes. Mexican FPL content will be interesting. But yeah, as I said, I have a friend of mine who, unfortunately, I don't get to speak to very well, or I'm not able to speak Polish, but he's got Polish FPL content going. If you think about it, there's not that many content creators who do content in other languages. So even though, yes, of course, the audience might be smaller, if you can get most of the audience watching you, I mean, that could be really nice. Gonna win that cup. Do you get a Rolex for the cup? Surely not. What do you think? I took Salah and Alvarez out for De Bruyne. I think that's aggressive, and I think you've done so. But Salah might not even play in Double Gaming 25, right? He might not even play both the games Double Gaming 25. And if that's the case, I think De Bruyne and Haaland could be amazing. So I don't think it can go that wrong, is basically what I'm trying to say. You get a watch for the overall cup. Okay. I probably should have thought about that before I got knocked out in round one. Before AFCON, my only strategy was to get cheap defenders to accommodate Son, Salah, and 14 million man. 14 million man. Well, now Salah's back, right? I did the same thing too. I thought South Korea are gonna last longer in the cup, and I thought Egypt are gonna last less. What happens? Salah comes home early and he's injured, so he ends up lasting basically as long as as if he was not to come home early at all. And then with Son, they just keep on winning these matches where they're losing, they're down, score a 99-minute penalty, and they come back and they win. And they seem like they could go all the way now. So that's the funny thing in life. What cups are you guys talking about? Just the FPL Cup. You have two FPL teams. One team is from first game week and had started a team from Game Week 13. Why Game Week 13? Yeah, I saw the lineups that Richarlison starts. We already got the leak that Richarlison starts. Let me just name the lineup, though, for you guys, for those interested. Pedro Porro, Romero, Van de Ven, Udogi, Højbjerg, Bentancur, Madison, Johnson, Richarlison, Werner. Whoa, that's Kulusevski on the bench. Okay. Wow. Okay. I dropped Kulusevski on the cheat sheet this week, so maybe I was cooking something there. We actually cooked Korea, but they scammed the pen last minute. That's what I'm trying to say, though. Like, South Korea aren't a good team, but they're still sort of jamming their way through. I mean, Australia were also one of the bigger favorites. So the fact that you've lost just means that there's less competitive teams that can actually challenge. Don't know why I'm not taking my Gaming 13 serious. My test team and my watch list team. Fair enough. Fran confirmed insider info. I think the inside info is knowing that Kulusevski has horrendous underlying stats. If they're ahead, Madison will come off for Kulu around 60 to 75 minutes. Yeah, potentially, obviously, because Madison's, he's come back soon. But, I mean, that's still not a good sign for Kulusevski, right? Son's not even here and you're already losing minutes, for whatever reason. Part of that, of course, is Brennan Johnson's playing well. So, yeah. I'm just quickly checking how things are going on in terms of the timeline. Brighton leak starting. Fran code once again. I don't have any Brighton leaks. I think Brighton and Arsenal are probably one of the biggest teams, like two of the biggest teams where I think they have the tightest sort of lips. Like, I never see Brighton leaks. I never see Arsenal leaks. Yeah. You have Holland and Tony and Solanke starting on your team. Sold Watkins, and of course Watkins scores when I don't have him. Oh, you sold Watkins last week, you mean? Well, I mean Tony still did well for you, right? And so did Solanke. So I think you're fine, my friend. If I'm being honest. You bench Saka and Gabriel. You captain Solanke, great. Mid is Bailey, Palmer, Foden, KDB. Front Solanke, Watkins, Holland. Def, Trent, Burn, Porro. I mean, nothing crazy about that. I probably would have played Saka over Foden, but no complaints about your team selection. A couple of weeks ago, I think I sold Watkins, which is fine. He's blanked a lot. Brighton does not have leaks because the manager usually tells. Well, first of all, half their squad is injured. So if you need Brighton leaks to guess what their lineup is, I think there's a problem there because, first of all, they just don't even have a bench. And then in terms of Arsenal, I mean, yeah, they are tight-lipped, I would say. Tight-lipped, and also Arteta excuse me, by the way. Sorry, I've just not slept enough this week. I really apologize for that. But yeah, I mean Arteta. Yeah, this guy gives us a strong. I'm a blur again. I didn't even notice that I was a blur. Sorry. All right, since I'm a blur, and since I really appreciate you guys being here, thank you guys so much for being on the stream. I've really enjoyed the support, really enjoyed the interaction as well. Signing out as a blur. Take care. Have a lovely Green Arrow and Game Week, whatever the rest, etc. Blah blah blah. The camera has a vendetta against it. I need to get the camera fixed. The camera will be fixed next live stream. But take care, guys, and goodbye. I'm gonna get some rest, but I'll also be watching Richarlison play football, so that will be fun.